she works with me at Wisdom Window. She's amazing. And I asked her how she wanted to be introduced, and she is a business consultant. She does a lot of what I do with different businesses. Her background, a lot of it's in technology, and in particular social media. And the biggest compliment I think I can give Heidi is I've never met anyone that is more of a self-educator when it comes to a different way of thinking and being. And so she'll come in and she'll go, guess what I learned? Or she'll have a book. Look what I just learned about social media. And Michael, you need to do Facebook. And lectures me on what I don't do so that I can have a better following and things such as that. She's extremely intelligent. She also does quite a bit with homeschooling. So she helps moms to use the technology plus integrate it into homeschooling. And very intelligent what she does. I've looked at her material. She puts together great material. It's very easy to follow, highly instructional, and easy for homeschoolers to be able to integrate it into teaching their children. So I'm going to turn the time over to Heidi. Let's give her a big hand.
I didn't even pay him to say that. Amazing. So thank you all for being here. My name is Heidi Totten, as he mentioned, and I'm going to set my intentions for the night. Is that okay? Can I just set my intention? Because what I really want you guys to learn and understand, especially because we have so many college students, oh my gosh, I remember when I was there. And seriously, it was such a great time in life. I will tell you my exact age, but first, my intentions. So my intentions tonight are to just open up your mind a little bit at what is beyond what you're doing right now in your life. Because I remember being at BYU, and I'm like, BYU, I say that like I should apologize, but I know I'm in a room with Wolverines. I did actually go to UBCC. No, we're not going to talk about the U, sorry. I did actually, my dad's a professor at UBCC, he said, or was at UVU, and he's an English professor, so I was on the campus a lot. I started in 1990, and this was pre-internet, right? So my AOL address that I still have, I got in 1995, and I was an early adopter in my apartment complex. It was like, what is that? What's that thing? That modem sound. That was probably before some of you were born. Oh my word. Anyway, so I was at BYU, and I graduated in 1995, and I was sitting there going, what am I supposed to do now? No one told me. No one told me what I was supposed to do. And I was one of those strange people that got through college having never checked a book out of the library. I never added or dropped a class. I just scheduled things and went and somehow managed to graduate in 4.5 years. So I was kind of an anomaly there. My parents had collectively 5 degrees, and when I started at BYU, it was, oh, you will major in English. Yes, English. That is what you will major in. Otherwise, you will never have a job. Does anyone feel that way right now? Like English? Would anyone? Well, never mind, I won't go there. Anyway, so in my mind it was, yes, I'm going to step right into my parents' footsteps. I'm going to get the degree they got. I'm going to do the jobs that they did. I'm going to just progress on that path because they both majored in English. And there was a big problem, and the problem was that, oh my gosh, I hated majoring in English, and my English teachers really hated that I was majoring in English as well. I remember I had to do a paper it was Beowulf through 18th century. And so I did this paper, and I took it to my dad, who was head of the English department at UBCC at the time, and I said, will you look over this, because all of my papers have been so terrible that I think I'm going to get kicked out of the English department, and they don't even do that at BYU. They don't even kick you out. It's not a major you have to apply to. You just declare it. So he went through it and said, no, this is great, this is great. And my dad, head of the English department, got a B- on that paper after totally going over it. So I knew that this was not the right major for me. So I switched over to family science because I was minoring in it at the time. And my family science professors loved me because I knew how to write. Because I knew how to write from my English major where they didn't like me. So I flipped and I got A's because they knew that I could write. It was fabulous, and I loved it. And again, I graduated in 1995. No idea. What do you do with a family science degree? Unless you're going to grad school. And I didn't want to go to grad school. So this is where the first part of hacking my own education came into play. So I was 23, and the very first thing I did was I looked for opportunities. Geez, I can spell, I promise. So I started looking for opportunities, and I applied for a position with a company called Stream International. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was a software fulfillment company. Now, I didn't really know that much about software. I knew that I had, I've been using, in fact, my first computer was a 286. Raise your hand if you even know what a 286 is. Oh, 3 people, okay, awesome. Yeah, with a dot matrix printer. Do they exist anymore? Are they like antiques? For what?
Museum pieces.
For museums?
Printing on NRC paper.
Okay, I don't know what that is either. I'm going to learn that.
No carbon required.
Gotcha. No carbon required. Okay, so the first thing I did was I started looking for opportunities. And by looking for opportunities, I knew that there was technology coming into play. And I knew that I did not have the degree to support that. So I went and I applied for a job. And this was going to be a job where I was going to be on the phones all day, but I was willing to put in the work because things were not handed to me. I was willing to do the work. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to transfer a family science degree into technology, this is going to be how I do it. When I was in that interview, they were interviewing for another team, and it was Macromedia. Macromedia was purchased by Adobe a few years ago. Adobe, you may have noticed, has a big building on the side of the road. You drove past it on the way up here. All of a sudden I was like, ooh, Macromedia, that's cool stuff. That's graphic design. That's multimedia stuff. And this is going to be a confession. So when I was in college, Romeo and Juliet came out, so I had a huge crush on Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm not proud of it, but I did. And so my first attempt at technology was creating websites about Leonardo DiCaprio, which had I continued with that, I would probably have a very profitable website by now, right? But I just was, playing around, and it was AOL websites, and I loved America Online. I mean, who didn't, unless you were 3 when all of this was happening? But I loved it, and so I wanted on that team, and I was like, I have no sales skills, none whatsoever. I had never done sales before, but I was going to be on that team. And so Ann will be talking to you in a little while about what it takes to manifest what you want and the system that she uses, but I will tell you that no person worked harder in that interview than me. And I went on at Macromedia for this company to be the #1 salesperson 7 months in a row. And I won all of the software. So that was the first time that I said, okay, no matter what my background, no matter what my major, no matter what I've spent my time in so far, there is a whole world out there, and I get to choose what it looks like. So I worked at this company for a couple of years, and during this time I was really learning. I was really excited about technology, and I really still didn't know where I wanted to go, and I didn't want to hang out in Provo anymore. So my cousin came to me, and he was an actor. He's still an actor, and he said, hey, if I don't move to New York, let's move to Washington, D.C. And I said, ooh, I'm going to do that anyway. And I didn't have a job. I didn't have a place to live. I had a car, and I had $800 in savings. And I picked a date, and I said, on April 7th, we're leaving. And we hooked up a U-Haul, and he came with me, so that was good. At least and we drove across the country, and we ate Diet Coke, pretzels. They were non-fat, and Taco Bell. That was our menu for the week because we had no money. So we drive across the country, wrecked my car in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I still don't have a place to live. I still don't have a job. And we sort of putt into Northern Virginia. And my mom had called her cousin and said, can she stay with you until she finds something? But here's what's crazy. I knew I would. I knew that I would. Now, would I be that brave? I don't know. But then I knew because I was looking for opportunities and I was ready for what came. So I started a job temping, and I actually temped in Northern Virginia for a year and a half before I took a permanent position. This was in the late 90s, huge technology boom. Anyone remember what was going on in the late 90s in this country? Well, in the world? Yeah, it's called the dot-coms, right? So I took a job for a company called SAIC, and I was in HR. Well, family science works for HR. It's sort of similar, right? So I thought, great, HR, this is going to be awesome. I'm going to have a career in HR. Yeah, and so I did that, and which brings me to my second thing. After a few months in HR, my boss came to me and said, you are terrible at HR. You are like the least compassionate person, and you are so annoyed every time somebody calls you for HR help. You are the worst at HR. There went my HR career. But you would be awesome at recruiting. And I was like, okay. So she said, let's get you in there. Let's bring you on as a recruiting assistant. Okay. So I started recruiting. I loved recruiting. I loved talking. I had already been a salesperson for Macromedia. It was the same thing. I was just, come get a job. And this was for SAIC. It was one of the largest government contractors in the world. It was employee-owned. Everyone wanted to work for them because their stock was incredible. It was all employee-owned. So I listened to her, and I started recruiting. And here's where it was funny. But then I went back and I looked for opportunities because somebody told me, hey, did you know the recruiters, like every time you job hop, you can make more money? And I was like, ooh, sweet, because that was how the dot-com world was. Every time you took a new job, you increased your salary by 10 to 15,000. It was crazy. And in Northern Virginia, it was like Silicon Valley, you know? So every time anyone jumped, they got a huge increase. So that was my thought. Oh, now I'm going to kill it. All right, I'm making like $14 an hour. What can I make? Oh, I could at least make $40,000 a year, so like 30 to 40. And so I applied for jobs. I started applying, and I had 4 months of experience in recruiting. So the fact that I was, yeah, I have 4 months experience. I'm going to go make, you know, $10,000 more. Well, I did, and I got a sign-on bonus of $3,000, and bumped up to $40,000. And I thought, piece of cake, I'm joining a recruiting team. They're going to teach me. I'm going to learn from them. And I walked in, and the first day, the CEO fired all of the other recruiters. And so there I was, 4 months of experience, lead recruiter, going, oh my word, what am I supposed to do? And this is where what Michael said about me came into play, because I was like, you know what, this is sink or swim. I had just bought a new car with that sign-on bonus, right? So that $3,000 was out, and if I failed, I had to pay it back. And I didn't have it because I bought a new car, which is a whole other funny story that involves both of my parents who have been divorced for 40 years. And anyway, so I dug in. And the requirement for me was to have 4 hires per month. And this was a government contractor. It was an 8A firm, which meant it was minority owned. And I got 8 because I knew I had to prove myself. Because at this point, I literally had no experience, again, in something I was doing. And so I dug in, and I talked to the right people, and I listened to my mentors, and I called my old mentor from SAIC, and I was like, so we need an HR manager. Would you like to come join us? And I hired my mentor so that I would have her to teach me in a new company where I was making $10,000 more. Right? Look for opportunities. So then I left after 4 months. I really job hopped a lot, but the reason why I left was because I got a call, and this was a dream job. This was actually my dream for moving to Northern Virginia, was to get a job at this company. So I got the call. They said, we want to pay you $30 an hour, which equated to about $60,000 a year. I was single at the time, and I lived with roommates, and my rent was $300 a month. So, like, I'm going to say no. And the company was America Online. So the company where I had had my email address, and that was so cutting edge, and the week after I started, they merged with Time Warner. It was awesome. There was so much energy, and it was so crazy, and it was so cool. and all this stuff was going on. And then this was all like 2000, 1999, and then things started unraveling and unraveling and unraveling. And then the bubble burst. Prior to the bubble bursting, I got up to a salary of $85,000 with very little experience in about 2.5, 3 years, because I was willing to do the work. And that's how I hacked my education, was I was willing to do the work. I was a technical recruiter for 13 years. It was a very long-term career for me. I got married, and I had children, and it was something I could do from home. And when I was about 2010, I decided that I was going to start a recruiting company with 2 business partners. Collectively, we had over 30 years of experience in recruiting, so we had it made, right? I mean, 30 years of experience, we were going to kill it. We worked for a company together, and in 1 month, we closed $300,000 worth of business. So we knew we were gold. So we started this company, and within a few months, I realized that none of the 3 of us, while we had 30 years of experience, we didn't know how to run a business. Okay, so you have all these recruiters who are trying to overlap each other, and no, that was my hire, no, that was my hire. Well, we're all 1/3 partners, so it doesn't matter anyway, you know. We didn't know how to run a business. And after about 1.5 years, I was on the phone with one of my partners, and he said to me, because we were really struggling, he said, I don't think that you should be taking a draw because you're not supporting a family. And so all this experience that I had, I immediately created a belief that I wasn't good enough to make money working for the company because I wasn't supporting a family. So probably about 2 months later, I was in a business meeting with them, and in one of our company meetings with 3 of us. We didn't have any other employees. And I sat there and I thought of, about my 13-year career, and I thought about all the experiences that I've had, and all of the opportunities that I have gone after and chased after. And I pushed my chair back and I said, gentlemen, I'm out. And I walked away. And then I was like, now what am I supposed to do? So I'm going to introduce you to my table, because what I did next was pretty crazy. I was 39, and sorry, am I going out of the screen? Okay, well then I'll just grab this. So I was 39, and for a few months I just sort of treaded water, and I said, I don't know what to do. And I got an email from a business coach that I knew about, that I met about 1 year earlier at an event, and she was doing a retreat. And I said, you know what, for my 40th birthday, I'm going to pay to go to her retreat. Who does that? Who says, for my 40th birthday, I'm going to go to a business retreat? Not a spa weekend, business retreat. So her name's Kim Flynn, and I went to her business intensive retreat. This is representative of my education for the last 3 years. This is what I've done. And I hacked my education because I hired the mentors. Because once Stephanie was out of my life and I had moved on from the company where I hired her, I didn't have any mentors. I didn't have people showing me the way. I didn't have people that I was learning from. I kept getting opportunities, but I didn't have people to help me through it. So what I did was I hired people. And that represents it represents 3 years and probably $30,000 of me investing in me so that I could learn how to run a business. Because I never wanted to be in that position again, and because I knew that my skills were valuable. And so then the third thing that I want to say is, that I think is important, is learn how to learn. See, going back, I was one of those kids that my mom would say, your IQ is so high, you should be getting straight A's. And this was back in the 80s, where teachers were saying, oh, we're going to shove you into honors because of how you test. I wasn't an honors kid. I was like a street smart kid, you know. I mean, I was more of a hacker. And I remember, in fact, if she's watching, Miss Beeler, I've told you this, but I literally would apologize every time I see my senior English teacher for the paper she had to read that I wrote my senior year of high school. And I was honors. I was like AP. I was one of the smart kids in the school, and I faked it the whole way because I didn't know how to learn, because I never learned how to learn. And now, at the ripe old age of 42, I know how to learn, because not only do I hire people to teach me how to learn, because I hire the people who I want to emulate, and because if I want to do something, I go after that and I say, show me how to do that. But I also turn around and I teach it. And turning around and teaching it to someone else is one of the best ways that you can solidify your own learning. See, I had a mentor that told me once, you know, so often we're so stressed out about, I want to get to point N. You know, we're here, we're like at point A, and then we take a step and we go to point B, and we've got our degree, our future, you know, everything that we want to be is down the road. And so we take a step and we get to C, and we're never going to get to N. And Tresta and I were just talking about this. She's got amazing stuff to teach you. But we forget to turn around and teach A and B. And that's where our learning comes in, when we turn around and we become a mentor to someone else. So fast forward, and here we are in 2007, and my neighbors come to me and they say, let's start a charter school. And I said, okay, that sounds like fun, because, you know, why not, right? Why not? And then my kids can go. And then their education is taken care of because I helped start the school. Well, the crazy thing about starting a charter school is that you can start it and create it into whatever you want to be, but it's still a government school. And so there's still standards that you have to follow. And I realized as I watched my children go to this school, they learn just like me. Uh-oh, I built the wrong school for them. You know, like this is not what they, and the crazy thing is that there were 3 or 4 people on the board with me who said the same thing, and they homeschool now. So in 2012, I felt that pull to start homeschooling. And I was starting a business, and I was doing business coaching, and I was, what is this? How am I supposed to balance all of this? And the interesting thing was, because I had coached with Kim, and because she taught me her system, I said, oh, that's my perfect system for homeschooling. So it gave me the perfect platform for me to run my homeschool. And so that's why now I teach women how to balance business and homeschool using the system that I learned. Now, let me tell you how I have brought this all together. And I'm just going to kind of precede this because you're going to hear from Ann. Ann's one of my gurus. She's one of my mentors. Her stuff's on there. Fall of 2012, I met Ann at a Kim Flynn Academy, and we were doing a really fun activity where we got to do pretend Shark Tank. And one of the activities that we were required to do was build a business, literally from scratch, with a team of 4, and we had to have sales, and we had to have financial projections, and we had to have social media and websites set up in 12 hours. On your mark, get set, go. And I was cooking for that retreat at the same time, so I'm like, I think our revenue is going to be, you know, I mean, it was crazy. It was insane. I wasn't sleeping. And I had never met Ann before, but she came in as one of the Shark Tank investors. And so here I had heard of her, and I was like, and then the guy that was in the best 2 years that, you know, was there, he's an actor, and he was there, and he was one, and I'm like, she might got cool people to come in and be the Shark Tank investors. And my team won. It was awesome. But the great part about that night was that I stayed up till 2 listening to Ann's story. And this was my thought back then was, she's going to be one of my mentors. And so I've become an Ann Webb junkie. But her program, Ideal Life Vision, has literally changed my life. And it brought it all together. It brought the balance of balancing school, balancing Homeschool, balancing my life, my business, my spirituality, my relationships, it brought it all together for me. But the best part of all of this is that I'm only 42. So here I'm saying, wow, look at all that I've been able to do, and look at all the experiences I've been able to have and all of the opportunities. And I still have a long way to go. Facebook told me last week that I'm going to die when I'm 83. So I still have 41 years, you know, to do all of these amazing things. And because I have stuck to these three things, because I've learned how to learn, I've listened to mentors and people who are stepping in to help me, and I've looked for people to help me, and because I've looked for those opportunities, I am so ready to go because I have the tools I need. So I invite you to do the same. Wisdom Window is a platform about transformational learning. So whether it's in health and fitness, or whether it's in finance, or whether it's in business training, whatever you want to learn, however you want to transform your life, this platform has been created to do just that. And I sat down with Brooks. I've known Brooks for a couple of years now. Met him a couple of years, I guess about 2 years ago. I think I met Ann and Brooks about the same time. And I sat down with Brooks, and this platform has evolved over countless hours of brainstorming and whiteboarding. He's a huge whiteboarder. He just drinks his Coke and let's whiteboard that. That's, you know. Anyway, so we spent hours and hours and hours and hours, and Brooks became one of my mentors and opened up the opportunity for me to then go out and learn social media. Raise your hand if you like social media. Yeah, we all have a love-hate relationship. Well, like it or not, it's here to stay. It's sort of like AOL and email in the beginning, you know. It's still new. I joined Facebook in 2008, in April 2008, when all we did was poke and swag each other, you know. It was just, somebody posted today, I just got poked. Do people still do that, you know? So that was my early, and I joined LinkedIn, and I used LinkedIn to recruit. You know, a lot of people say, I don't even know how to use LinkedIn. I used it for 3 years to recruit. And so all of a sudden I realized, oh, it's another opportunity. It's just another opportunity, and it's another opportunity to learn. And then I can turn around and I can share it with people that come into my space, that come into my life, that need to learn the things that I have to teach them. Because that's really what this is. We're all mentors for each other. No matter where you are on the path, you can be a mentor, and you can seek mentorship from other people. So we're all just here to move forward. And the crazy thing is that this train is going with or without you. You know, so whatever you want to do in life, I will tell you, I blinked for my college graduation, and I'm here. It is so fast. It goes so fast. Take every opportunity to learn. Every opportunity. Take every opportunity to find mentors. And it's going to be awesome. Thank you.
We've got a couple. What time is it? Tresta or Ann next? I can't remember. Tresta. What time did we have you scheduled for? 7?
7:10 to 8:10.
7:10. Okay. Well, we've got 10 minutes for potty breaks. Out the thing down towards the stairs and on the left. If you'd like to stick around for just a minute, maybe I can tell you a little bit more about Wisdom Window. And then we'll, if you want to stay here, well, instead of running to the bathroom, Jamie's already up. I got it. I got it. When he wears his hat on the side, it's desperate.
That's creative.
So if you need to go, please feel free. But as those of you stay here, let me kind of explain to you a little bit about Wisdom Window, what it means and what we're doing. Wisdom Window really is a platform, as Heidi was saying, where professors such as Tresta and Ann and Heidi come and put their information that you can learn from. You can come and take their courses on demand. Sometimes the things they have are free. Sometimes there's a price. You get to determine as you get to know them a little bit more if you're comfortable paying their price. You push a buy button and you buy it. And then you can download it and have it experience it. Amazing presenters. We refer to them in our vernacular as providers. That's a professor. Okay, so these three ladies, for example, are providers on Wisdom Window. They have learning and knowledge that's very valuable. You're going to school, some of you now, some of you are beyond school. Michael, for a lot of the youth that are in here, Michael is their professor down at UVU. Phenomenal education. I'm not going to take away from that at all. But, like Heidi has said, there's a table full of $30,000 worth of education that she's gotten away from formal schooling. And I would venture to say, if we could have her measure which one was more valuable, dollar for dollar, this is much more valuable. Would you agree?
Yes, and this is on Wisdom Window. Ann's going to be talking about it, but that's probably the most valuable piece of all of it.
Okay, so you can learn from Ann directly and how powerful this is. Now, how does Wisdom Window work? What does it do? You can come on. Every one of you became a member, which is free today. And by the way, Dave Smith, right? See, he's also a provider. I didn't mean
And
to
Mary Ann Johnson just showed up.
Okay, so there's a number of providers here. You can get to know them, get to rub shoulders with them, and go and experience learning from them. Okay, it's pretty powerful stuff. But I think something that is very exciting that we've been working very hard behind the scenes to launch with is the way we are now reaching out and beginning to promote our providers. There are other platforms similar to Wisdom Window out there. I'm not going to pretend like we're the only one. There's at least 40 that I've found. But every one of them are very similar to each other, and I think we're different. And how we're different really stems from what Heidi and Jameson Brown here, who I teased a little bit, what they're doing. The aspect of social media and the way that it works with the internet today is completely different. In fact, what Jamie and Heidi are doing is disruptive to the standard traditional ways of marketing through social media. And what they will do, and here's Mary Ann Johnson, also one of our providers. What they're going to do, or what they are doing, is enlightening people through social media about Wisdom Window and bringing people here. When they come to Wisdom Window, they will come with a knowledge and understanding and a confidence in Wisdom Window and our providers, and as a result have a higher probability of buying. Okay? If I go to another platform, I'll tell you the name of one. It's called Udemy. And if I go to Udemy and look around and find providers there, or professors, I will find one by the name of Jack Welch. Does anybody know who that person is? Okay. Jack Welch commands easily a $500, a $1,200 course. And just by the very nature of who he is, I'd be willing to spend the money because I know who he is. But I might not know who Brooks Anderson is if I'm coming to Wisdom Window for the first time, because it's just not Jack Welch. By the way, Jack Welch ran GE for years. Okay. One of the biggest Fortune 100 companies out there, probably in the Fortune 10 companies worldwide, I would say. So what I want to learn from him, absolutely, this is a guy that would be my mentor, although I don't have access to him personally. But what I would love you to do is just come and surf around on Wisdom Window. Get familiar with some of our providers. We're adding more every day. If you think you have a product that you'd like to sell on Wisdom Window, we'd love to have you come and look at it and see it, explore it. But honestly, what we're starting to see is a groundswell in Wisdom Window that over the next few weeks, the next few months, is really going to grow. And these providers are people that are going to be right on top of it with us. So it's a very exciting platform, a very exciting time in our business, an exciting time in the industry of learning, especially online learning. And I'm going to venture to say Mary Ann and Tresta specifically, because these are our homeschoolers, are talking about, they understand how people learn really well and the future of where learning is going. I was not home taught. I wish I was. Heidi's kids go to school for about an hour and a half a day.
Yeah.
Oh.
And these kids are 2 and 3 and 4 years ahead of the kids in their peer groups. Is that understandable to you, Marianne?
Oh, yeah.
Tresta? See? An hour and a half a day, my gosh, I sat in school for 6 and 7 and 8 hours a day, and I hated my teachers. And did I learn? Like everybody else. Yeah, I learned. But the reality is we learn differently, we learn different ways, and Wisdom Window can really help people learn. So there you go. There's a brief insight of what Wisdom Window is about. Maybe in a few minutes I can have a couple of those other people introduce themselves that won't be speaking to us today, so we can get them a little bit too. So, okay, everybody finished running the potty? We've got 3 or 4 more minutes, or we could go ahead and introduce Ann right now.
Is it Ann, then Tresta, or Tresta, then?
Oh, it's Ann, it's Tresta, and then Ann. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You can go first.
And you know what I'm going to do, because Heidi knows both of these ladies very well. They're dear friends at first, as you know, mentors and dear friends. Would you mind introducing them?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Tresta. I stalked Tresta. When I started homeschooling, of course, I looked for mentors. That's my method. And Tresta came up, and Marianne Johnson came up. And actually, I met Marianne because of Kim Flynn's program as well. Marianne is the homeschool coach. And so I think you actually turned me on to Tresta. So it was kind of this, follow these people. And then we met at an event, and her sister, Kelsey, that's sitting next to her, you know, so I started kind of getting into this world and into this community. And where the world is going, Tresta and her husband Tom, who's sitting next to her, and I were just talking about this, that the world is really kind of colliding into communities of people who have like interests and who want to pursue things together. And so I interviewed Tresta for Wisdom Window, I guess a couple months ago. And Tresta, first of all, she blew my mind with how smart she is. I'm like, oh, I think I'm smart. I'll own that. I think I'm smart. She's way smarter. She has 2 degrees. And she homeschools, okay, how many? 8? She homeschools 8 children. So I homeschool 2. She's kind of my idol, you know? Anyway, so she's been homeschooling all the way through. She's always homeschooled. She didn't know that she was going to homeschool when she was growing up. And in fact, we talked about this. I said, did you have any idea when you were growing up that you would be doing what you're doing now? And she said, heavens, no. You know, because none of us necessarily go into what we think that we're being raised to do or that we're learning now. So she's homeschooled her 8 children. She also runs a homeschool conference every single year, the LDS Homeschool Conference. It was held down at UBU. Held at UBU this year. It was absolutely phenomenal, and I attended it. And she just presented on the Not Back to School Summit, which is going on right now, run by the Home Education Council of America. And I'm hoping that you're going to talk about what you presented on, because
I'm going to touch on it.
She's going to touch on it because it's so fascinating. So I continue to learn from Tresta. I'm really excited to be able to introduce her. She's, like I said, absolutely brilliant. And so without further ado, Miss Tresta Neil.
Do you mind if I take a chair and set it up a little? Because I don't want to come to the podium every time. So I can put my notes on it. Okay. All right, so tell me about where I need to be. Right here. Right there. Okay. All right, this is going to be my little table, and I'm going to put my notes on here so I don't forget anything. All right. Thank you, and welcome. I am really grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for Wisdom Window and inviting me to be here, so I'm grateful to be here. So how many of you have heard of Pythagoras? Come on, the Pythagorean theorem. Come on, you can do it. Okay. I've heard of it, I don't know what it is.
You don't know what the Pythagorean theorem is? How many of you know what the Pythagorean theorem is?
No,
Will you say?
A squared plus b squared equals c squared.
Correct. It's a math formula for a right angle triangle. Okay? So you have to have a right angle triangle in order for it to work. But a squared, okay, this is a side note, but this is a squared, b squared, this is c squared. Okay.
So if you take a squared plus b squared, it'll always equal the hypotenuse of a right angle triangle. So he invented that, okay? All right, so Pythagoras is a mathematician. Pythagoras lived in the Greek time period, and he was a powerful teacher. He was a powerful learner, he was a powerful person, and everybody wanted to be around. Now, if you don't know his story, you really need to know it, because he, at the beginning of his life, at the beginning of his career, he did not know how to find students to teach. He loved people. He loved people so much, and he's like, I need someone to teach. I have all this knowledge inside of my brain, and I cannot find enough students. So he paid a student to take his lessons from him. He found a student, a little boy, on the street, and he paid him to listen to him. That's how he got started. Now, he became an amazing mathematician that invented the amphitheater on two sides. And he had this mathematician, big, huge stage in the center as his students went up like this, and they would fill the Colosseums every single day. He was a powerful mathematician. Well, one day he decided, hey, I need to know more. I've learned this much, I've taught this much, but I need to know more. And the people of Atlantis are smarter. I've heard that they have some things that I don't have. So I'm going to run over to Atlantis, and I'm going to stay there for 2 years, and I'm going to mentor with them, and then I'll be back. So his friends, so imagine that you're one of his friends, okay? And you say, all right, have fun, goodbye, we'll teach the school while you're gone, or we'll have fun while you're gone, okay? And then he leaves. He'll be back in a couple years, right? Well, a couple weeks later, he returns. Weeks later, he returns. What would you think? What? He gave up on it. Did he give up? Yeah, but that's what it was. Wait, wouldn't you question him? Hello, didn't you say you were going to be gone for years? Why are you back in a couple weeks? He answered this with this sentence: because they were scaling people. What does that mean? Who knows what scaling means? All right, I'm not telling you the answer. Scaling?
I'm not sure.
S-C-A-L-E-N. Scaling. Very good. It is a triangle. Ah, he called them triangles. Weird. Why did he call them triangles? Excellent. Okay, he's a mathematician. And he thinks mathematically, right? All right, so think about that. Think about what a scaling triangle is. If you don't know what it is, you can look it up on your little phones. You can go find it out. What type of triangle is it? What was he talking about? Okay, I'm going to let you think about that the whole time that I'm talking. We'll go back to that at the end of my talk. Okay. I know some of you know the answers who have seen some of my classes, right? Okay, so my talk, or this presentation today, is on curiosity. Why is it so important to have curiosity? Curiosity is what we need in our education, right? She told you that I have 2 degrees. I absolutely have 2 degrees. But you know what I did? I graduated in 1990, and I felt stupid. My mother said, you graduated with those 2 degrees, and you still don't even know that? And I believed it. Okay, I believed it. That's not what we're about. I wasn't curious to become a nurse. It wasn't not even in my vocabulary to become a nurse, but I did it so that I could be educated, right? And I'm grateful for that degree. Don't get me wrong. I used it a lot with my children. And that's how I started my career, actually, is in the health department. But it's not what I was doing. It's what I was born to do. Okay? It wasn't until I became curious with other things that I became educated, truly, and getting education like this. All right, so curiosity. Tell me what curiosity is. Just raise your hand. What is curiosity?
I'm curious what you're going to ask.
Okay. That's a good way of sounding.
Continually asking questions, like why and when and how and where. And,
yeah.
Wanting to know more.
4-year-old.
Okay, excellent.
I was just going to say, my kids. Why does that work? Why is that? Why?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm so tempted always to be like, but that's their curiosity. That's how I can learn what they actually care about.
Mm-hmm. I actually, and I am embarrassed to say this, but I did this. I have a 4-year-old, and he really wanted to go out with me to go shopping. And I said, if you go shopping with me, you can't ask me any why questions. I said that. I can't believe I said that. But in the middle of the shopping, my son is still asking the why questions, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And my son, my older son, the 16-year-old who was with me, said, Mom, wasn't he not supposed to go if he asked any why questions? I'm like, oh, I really did say that. Oh, okay, so please don't take the curiosity out of your children. That's the whole purpose of this talk. Don't take the curiosity out. Yes, children are curious. They're very curious. We are born curious people. We are extremely curious. But what happens as we get older? We lose that curiosity. Now, there's probably 100 reasons why, right? Mine was probably my school teachers telling me, stop asking that question, stop asking that question, stop asking that question. I remember having a question when I was in school. I know all these stories about history, but they're all miscombobulated, and I'd like to see a big picture of how they all fit into the timeline. And the teacher said, I don't even know that. So I stopped asking questions. Okay? I stopped asking questions. If the teacher doesn't even know, why do I need to know? Okay, so I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. And these I'll answer at the end of the question, unless you know the answer. These are thinker questions for yourself. How has the triangle affected your life? How has the triangle affected your life? Can you tell me what that means?
I can tell you how it's affected me.
Oh, okay. All right, do it.
Flip it upside down, it's a funnel. And so I've looked at not top down, but more looking at what can I fit in my funnel, and then how does it disperse itself.
So you see it as a business thing.
Yeah.
Excellent. Very good. Yes.
Seems like they're used a lot in building houses and buildings.
Are they?
Just like, I don't know, I was just thinking of like just the shape of a regular house.
It has a rooftop that's triangular. Excellent. Excellent. Good thinking. All right. Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah, hours of your lives are spent in school learning specifically about triangles.
Hours?
You have geometry and algebra and everything. So every hour that you're in class, in that class, learning about triangles.
Could you get up here and teach me about triangles for 2 hours?
I mean, I can teach you for 30 minutes.
Could you? All right. All right. You could tell me the 3 different types of triangles.
Maybe.
Okay. All right. Good. We learn about the triangle itself. What is that?
Well, 3 different triangles.
There are 3. So you figured it out. You found them. Good. 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 Anyone else? How has a triangle affected your life? Oh, I was going to comment on yours. Have you ever heard that triangles are the best shape to build? They're the strongest shape. Is that what you were referring to?
I've heard that. I heard something like that.
Yeah. But do you know how it's built in triangles? It's taken me a long time to figure that out, but I finally figured it out. Okay, anyone else? Yeah?
I think a lot of architecture is affected by triangles, like the arch.
Yes.
Kind of a form of triangles and the keystone and arch.
Very good.
Architecture.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Bridges. Lots of bridges are made of triangles and triangular shapes.
The shape of a piece of pie. Come on, you guys.
All right, now we're thinking. Yes. All right. Yes, pies and pizzas are all made of triangles. Yes, that's very true. Okay. So keep that thinking going. Okay, keep that thinking going while you're thinking. Keep thinking. How has a triangle affected your life? And the second question is, how has the shape of the number 2 affected your life? How has the shape of the number 2 affected your life? Does anybody have an answer? Really quick? Okay.
Cursive or print?
The shape for the number 2.
There's a shape.
There is a shape. If 3 is the shape, the triangle is the shape for the number 3. What is the shape for the number 2, and how has it affected you?
Ooh, good. I heard it.
2 is a line, 3 is a triangle, 2 is a line, and 1.
Okay, why do you say that?
Well, there's 3 corners in the triangle, but if you're using two, you can't finish a shape.
So it's only one-dimensional with only 2 points. You are right on. Okay? You are right on. But there's more to it. A lot more to it. Okay? All right. This is good. This is great. This is what I teach a lot on. I am the symbology guru. I love symbols and I love shapes, and I teach about this all the time. So we will get to those answers at the very end. I want to first teach you how I started on this journey and ask you to participate with me. All right, so when
you said the shape of the two, you meant an Arabic two, not a Roman.
No, there's a shape for every letter. For every number, there's a shape.
Right. For the Arabic two.
Well, so Arabic has, well, Arabic is like, well, yeah, for the Arabic. This is Arabic and this is Roman. All right. So it's for both. Okay, for the number 2.
Okay.
Do you know what the shape for the number 1 is? A point. It's a point or a circle. Yeah. All right, it's both. It's and. Okay, so I started out with learning to be, well, my husband talked me into being a homeschooler, and I had no idea how to be a homeschooler, and I was really stupid anyway, so how could I be a homeschooler, and how could I even teach my kids when I don't even know what I'm supposed to know? So I took a couple classes, and this is what I learned. You're supposed to teach your children how to think. Awesome. Now I know the answer, but I didn't know how. Okay, so here I am. I know what I want. I want to teach how to think. And I was over here with just being fed knowledge. And things are going in my mind. How? I was being told what to learn. There, you take that out. Okay, I was being told what to learn, and there was this big gap between knowing how to think. If I'm supposed to teach my children how to think, how am I supposed to teach them when I don't even know how to think myself? And this was a very quandary for myself. It was a deep quandary for me for years and years of how to teach them to think when I don't even know how to think for myself. So how do I teach myself how to think so that I can teach them how to think? All right, I want to hear from you. How do you teach how to think? Give me some ideas.
First, you have to teach yourself how to listen.
Awesome. I'm going to write them over here. Listen. Just shout them out.
I think asking, what do you think?
Asking. Anyone else?
Don't be afraid to fail.
Awesome. I love that. No fear. Oops. Anyone else? Risk. I love that word. Take risks. Anyone else?
Teach them how the brain works.
Okay. So learn about the brain. All right. That's good. Any more?
Get rid of your comfort zone.
And find out what your comfort zone is too, right?
Yes. So find out and then eliminate it.
Right. No more.
Expand it.
Expand.
Preferably with machine gun.
Expand. Excellent. Expand. I love that word. That's one of the laws of the circle. It's a equal expansion in all directions. Love that word. Yes, expand. Okay. I'm going to show you the formula that I came up with to help myself so that I could help others. And it goes something like this. I built a bridge. Well, let's see if I can draw a beautiful bridge. Okay. So you built a bridge across this gap so that you can walk across it. Do you know what the very first step is? We've already talked about it today.
Curiosity.
Excellent. Curiosity. Curiosity is right here. Okay? You have to start asking questions. You have to start asking questions. So do you know where I started with my homeschooling? I started remembering those questions I had back when I was younger, back when I was in school, and I asked my teacher, I have all these stories in history and I don't know where they all go to. So I started teaching history. I'm going to find out where they go. So I found this story and I found this story and I'm like, oh, did you know that the story of Moses was way after Noah? I didn't know. I had no idea. I didn't know that there was a guy named Wycliffe who helped start the Reformation. Wow, that's a new story. Where can I add that? Where does that go into? I started loving, I mean loving. I had a ginormous curiosity for learning history. And I studied every day. And I taught this much, because my kids were only this big. Okay? I just taught them this much, but I was learning this much because I was curious. I wanted to know that answer. And pretty soon, I could teach it to other people. I'm like, I know when that story happened. It happened way before this. Okay? I was excited about it. It was fun for me. And that was my first thing, is curiosity. The second step for me, and for everybody actually, was understanding. Understanding. Now, understanding, what does understanding mean? Did you know that if you studied the word understanding, that you would most of the time reach the heart? The word heart, oh, that's a beautiful heart. The word heart and the word understanding go together. So for me, I'm starting to understand this in a big way, literally, and knowledge is just the stuff that's coming into my brain. It's just being stuck there in little teeny tiny compartments, and I don't know how to set it apart, and I don't know how to put it together. But as soon as I started taking those stories and putting them in a timeline and understanding where they went, wow, other stories could totally just fit in there. They're like magnets. I know that story goes right here, and that story goes right here. It was beautiful. And it started coming, and it started to fill my heart. It started to fill my heart with love for these stories, with love for the whole plan, with the love for the whole extremely, from the very beginning to the very end. I couldn't wait to add more to my story. And where I fit into this big, huge picture, this big, huge story, it became one story. So knowledge is in the mind, and we want to get our knowledge to our understanding, which is into our heart. So you go from knowledge to understanding. And the next one is inspiration. I call this the CUIs. Not the DUI, the CUI. That's how I remember it. Okay, so the CUIs, inspiration. Now that I know all these stories, and I know where most of them fit in and how they work together, now my question was, what next? What next? Now that I know where this goes and I have this answer, what am I going to do next? And there was this much opened up to me. Okay? There was tons more left open. So I needed to know what next. The only way to know what next, in my mind, is inspiration. You receive that inspiration to being told, I feel like I need to go over here and learn this. Then you do. Or I'm curious about this area right here. Then take it. Do I have to follow a curriculum? Do I have to follow a set plan? Do I have to teach history and then geography? Do I have to teach geography with my history? Absolutely not. Do you have to learn it that way? You follow your heart. You follow where it's going. Yes.
Okay, can I share a story about
Absolutely.
Because this is really ridiculously one of the defining moments of my life that applies to this. But when I was 14, I watched a movie on VHS called Lady Jane, and it was Helena Bonham Carter, and she was young. I mean, it was, way before she got weird. Anyway, and I became obsessed with this story about a 9-day queen in England who was in between Edward and Mary, Queen of Scots, who and Edward was Henry VIII's son. So I really became so obsessed with this story and did a research paper on it, and read books about it, and it kind of became an internalized story for me. And then in 2007, I went to London for a week, and I was in the tower, and we were in the chapel, and the Yeoman warder said, and he said it casually, and he said, and Jane Grey, who was queen for 9 days, is buried behind me. And literally, I was like, I just gasped. And my sister, who knew that I had this, obsession, this 30-year obsession, was like, oh, here we go, And I went over, and I'm just looking down at this person's grave that that had sparked such a learning and such a curiosity about British history, that and it was so powerful. And then her book of prayers was in the British Library, and I just sat there looking at her handwriting.
Wow.
And that's when it was like so internalized, and I was so inspired by this story.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So you took knowledge that you had received and spent lots of time doing, and then you internalized it into your heart right here. Perfect. That's beautiful. Yeah. Isn't that what we all do? When we love something so much and spend so much time doing it, doesn't it become part of us? It becomes internal. It becomes within us. Yes?
Oh, I was just thinking. I must have been thinking really hard.
Oh.
I was reading a book about from creation to Abraham. And the man was just all over the place saying, well, this happened, and he was back and forth everywhere, and I was so fascinated by it. I thought to myself, I wonder what this would look like if you put it on paper. And so I immediately just got a big sheet of paper, and I created this astonishingly beautiful thing, which I laminated. It hangs my bedroom wall. I look at it every day because I love knowing how all those people fit in, and how old was this person when this person was born, and when they died, and it's beautiful. And it makes me feel really smart every time I look at it. It's hanging on my bedroom wall.
I made this.
Yes, but the thing was, I just was so interested, and because I'm a visual learner, and I'm trying to track these guys' words, I just said, I wonder what that would look like. And it was easy for me to create a visual of it. And I love that piece.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
My understanding, knowledge is one thing, all the names, but where do they fit in? And I love it. I love looking at it. It makes me feel very happy. I should copy it so if anything happens to the one, I'll have another one.
I love it. You take it to your grave with you. Yeah, absolutely.
These people and say, look what I did.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that would be amazing. See, do you see how education can be so powerful? She worships, well, okay, maybe that's too big of a word, but she worships her own creation that she made because of what she learned, okay? She's taking it a step farther, and we'll just go there because that's where she's headed. She went from knowledge, which is in the mind, to understanding, which is in the heart, to what's called intelligence. Intelligence isn't just what you know, it's not what's in your mind, it's your whole body, okay? Do you feel it in your whole body, Marianne?
Oh yeah, I can visualize it perfectly. If you ask me,
she could probably draw it on here, right? Yes. It has become you, right?
Yeah.
It is now an actual part of you.
And now when I'm reading, and so like there are maybe 30 people in this grid. When I read about them, I know who they are and where they fit and what they did, because then I had to go read more about them, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I had to know more than just where they fit on the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know about them.
Yeah.
It's exciting to know things.
It's completely exciting. That's very good. Thank you for sharing that. And you can do that same thing with the family history, right? I remember having a story told to me by my aunt a long time ago when I was just a little girl about one of my ancestors from Australia that was kidnapped. And then she was never found again. Well, I wanted so bad to know who she was and who she was. I spent 3 years of my life looking for this little girl and found her. But it took 3 years of hard work. And I was just led to one person to find the story. And sure enough, the story was written down. And I found it. It was powerful to me. And now that story is me. It's a part of me. This becomes your whole being. And that's what true education is. When you become what you've learned. This is where you become what you've learned. It is now an internal part of you, your whole being. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the bridge, this CUI bridge. Can I give that to my children? So here's my little son. I'm going to give him curiosity. Can I do that? Come on, why not?
Because it comes from inside.
Yeah. Can I give him inspiration?
Oh, go over here from this. Now that you can inspire.
I can inspire.
You can spark it.
I can inspire. Yeah. Yeah. Can I give them understanding?
You can help them gain understanding.
How?
They have to do the work.
That's right, right? I cannot build this bridge for anybody. I built this bridge, my bridge, for me, but I cannot build it for anybody else. Nor should I.
In one way you can, through example of your and what sharing.
Okay.
Because then you teach people how to take steps to gain wisdom in their own realm.
Very good. Yeah. You can be an example. So this is what I've learned, and this is how I remember. Whoop, let's leave our gap up here. As a parent, as a mentor, as a person who's teaching someone else, as a teacher, there are several things we can do, and I've put them into 6 groups. And I call this equip. So I am going to, oh, that's a cue. Equip. It's not spelled right. It doesn't need to be.
There's no U.
There's no U and there's 2 S's. All right? Are you going to make fun of my spelling? Bring it on. Okay. This is how I remember what I need to do to help my children build their own bridge. Okay? So parents, the parents equips their children. That's how I remember it. Parents equips their children. Or the parents equip their children. Okay? Or the mentors equip the learners. Okay, so what are equips? The first one's already been said. Wow. Now you can really make fun of my spelling.
I ordered markers with spell checking them.
Oh, thank you so much. This doesn't happen to be one of them, does it? Well, next time I'm getting one of those. All right.
That's the worst.
Oh yeah.
Signals like that. That's
not
it.
Not good. Yeah, don't do that one. All right. So equip. I mean, example. Okay. The first way is set an example. Do it yourself. Build your bridge first. If you don't have your bridge built, how are they supposed to learn to build their bridge? Okay, you have to build your bridge first. You can't teach anybody else how to build a bridge without having your bridge built first. Okay, I just read something today that I think fits really beautifully right here. So I'm going to share it with you somewhere. How about I just tell you? You guys can write it down if you want. Okay, I was reading about leadership. For some reason, I am fascinated with leadership right now, and I am hungry to learn more about leadership. But leadership is such... I do. I have curiosity. So I am wanting so bad to learn about this stuff. And then I read this article, and the first sentence was, leadership is such a broad term, and everybody's talking about it nowadays. And I'm like, no, duh. But I want to know more anyway. Okay. So this is what the article I gained from this article. Good leaders. What's the word? Raise the bar for themselves. Okay? I guess it's average leaders first. Average leaders raise the bar for themselves. Think of Michael Jackson. Oh, Michael Jordan, sorry. Michael Jordan. Close enough, right? Michael Jordan, what did
average leaders what?
Average leaders raise the bar for themselves. Okay, Michael Jordan spent 4 years of his career building his own career, building himself up, and became the greatest basketball player ever known, but forgot about the team, right? And he became known as, what was it, the Bulls and the Jordanettes or something like that. Okay, it was because they weren't a part of his team. He was the only person on the team that was doing anything. And then he spent the rest of his time learning how to build a team, and then he became very well known. Okay, so that's average leaders. So good leaders raise the bar for others. Good leaders raise the bar for others. In other words, these are coaches, these are mentors that have already done it before, that can go and help you become the best that you can be. And then the last one is great leaders help others raise the bar for themselves. Isn't that beautiful? What? Oh, okay. Great leaders help others raise the bar for themselves. And isn't this what we're doing? Great leaders are helping others build their own bridge. They need to have this own bridge because we need thinkers in this world. This world is not, we're too full of information. We need enough thinkers. We need people who can solve problems, who can actually talk to people face to face and not have to text them, right? We need people who can lead out. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, we would like to repeat the last one.
Okay.
Great leaders, what?
Great leaders help others raise the bar for themselves. Okay, so we're going to help our children or anyone else we touch or teach how to raise the bar for themselves. And that is a great leader. Because if I had a mentor help me make my own goals, then that's a true great mentor that I can strive for myself. Right? Okay, so let's get to number 2. Q. Who can guess? What starts with Q? What? Quality. It doesn't have to be quality. Questions.
Oh, questions.
Yay. So the questions I asked you at the beginning. Right. If you're thinking, that's great. That's what I want you to do.
Sorry.
Oh. Oh, now I've sent them down there. Dairy Queen. Awesome. Okay. So if the questions I asked you at the beginning, are you still thinking about them? Mm-hmm. You said no.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm on to the other. my processing, my hard drive's working on it.
Okay. That's fine. So those questions, did they leave you with questions? Do you know the answers to those questions? For yourself, not for not for the right answer. Okay? Okay. Think about that. Those questions help you become curious. If I were to ask my son, why is your eyes blue? Well, the other son, why is your eyes brown and everybody else's is blue? Do you know that a year later, after I asked that question, a year later, he came to me and goes, I know. Great, what? Because I had a surgery, nobody else did. Yeah. Okay. He figured it out. I don't know if that's true or not. He had a liver transplant, and some people say your lives change when you have a liver transplant, but I don't really know. Yeah, I've heard that, and I think that's probably a great answer. I know that's a good answer. That's a great answer. Yeah. So a year later, though, he was still thinking about it a year later. Okay? If you ask your kids the questions, they'll figure it out. They'll come up with answers. Is that awesome? Okay. Number 3. I. Nope, awesome starts with A.
I said I am awesome.
Oh. Okay. Or inspire. How do you inspire somebody? Draw out. Did you know that word means draw out?
No.
To draw out, to teach means to draw out. To inspire means to draw out of somebody. Teach doesn't mean I'm going to teach you and give you everything I know and just put my brain into your brain. That's not teaching. It's to draw out what they already know. And that's what inspire means. Okay? Do word studies. I love etymology. Word studies are beautiful, powerful stuff. It's like, for me, it's like constellations. I love constellations, and I love learning the brightest star in each constellation, the original name for those bright stars, because that name tells me about the constellation, what it originally meant. Go back to the words. Words are powerful. Okay, P. Personalize. You could personalize for yourself. Can you personalize for them? Passion. 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 Can you give them passion? No.
No, we sure show it.
Yeah, you can have your own passion. Yeah.
If you're paying attention to their interests, then they will be passionate. It's when you try to get them to be interested in your stuff. That's the problem.
Yeah, it doesn't happen, does it?
No,
it doesn't.
If you're listening and watching your children, you'll know where their passions are. But
Yes.
we're really busy managing them.
Look for their passions. What are they interested in? Because sometimes my passions, and believe me, I have some weird passions. I mean, constellations, brightest stars of constellations. Who's interested in that? Me. But I don't know anybody else who is. I don't. They're becoming people. They're getting around. They're coming around. I'm starting to find them because I'm doing that. But my children, not on your life. No way. They could care less about what that is. They're like, Mom, that's a cool story. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, I know it's a part of your life, but did you know? And their passion is something totally different. Okay, my son just now learning how to program his own. Tom, help me out. The mods, his own mods on the game of Minecraft. I have no interest in them. Not even close. I have zero interest in this. Well, I got it on not back to homeschool. I found it on this thing, and this guy was giving away this free something about Minecraft, and I'm like, hey, my son might be interested in that because I know my son's passion. Okay? I thought it was just a free mod. So I download it. I send it over to my son through his email. He opens it up, and he goes, Mom, didn't you say that was a mod? And we said, yeah, it's a mod. Isn't it a mod? That's what you wanted. And he goes, no, it's not a mod. It's how to make a mod. It's the step, 100 pages of how, step by step, how to make your own mods. And I'm like, oh, is that good? And he's like, absolutely! You know, my 17-year-old is so thrilled with this that he has spent the last 2 weeks, and I'm not kidding, every single minute he has free learning how to make his own mods because now he has that knowledge. And would I have known to give it to him? Not if I didn't know the word mod and Minecraft. Those are the only 2 words I knew that he was passionate about, and now he's making his own programs of that and creating his own stuff, making his own gold and making his own silver and whatever else you're doing there. But he is loving it. He is passionate about it. Okay, so find their passion and step on it. Oh, okay, not step on it. Step it up, go to it. Okay. All right, S. Symbol. Oh, that's a good one, but it's not the one I chose. Not that you have to use these either. Stories. How did I begin this presentation?
Story.
The story. Do you still remember it?
Yes, I don't remember his name.
Pythagoras. Yeah.
In fact, it was such a good story that I'll be spending tonight looking up that guy. Yes. Because I know I want to know the story.
Oh yeah, it's a fabulous story.
How old he is. And how
Where does he fit?
And where does he fit in the timeline?
I'm going to have to really extend that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I bet he doesn't fit into yours. He wasn't before 8th grade. Okay, so yes, isn't that awesome? Stories stay in the mind. They stay there. Okay? Stories are powerful. In fact, I think it's the best way to learn math is stories. Because then you learn how they created this formula. Because this formula that I drew up on the board, has a story behind it. How did he even come up with that? And why was it even a problem in the first place? There's a story behind that. Then you'll never forget that formula. Ever. Once you know the story. Okay? Stories. Powerful ways to help people create their own bridge. And the last one is symbology. And this is where I shine. This is where I love to be. What are symbols? What's the study of symbols? Where do you find symbols? Give me an answer. Where do you find symbols? Everywhere. Oh, you all know the answer. I love that. Everywhere. Everywhere. Okay? And how do you know what a symbol is? If you know the basics, just the basics, just the personal little teeny tiny things of shapes, maybe a little few colors, your world will go from this to this. I remember the first time that I was in the Netherlands, and one of the guys that was in my teeny tiny little classroom with me, there was only 6 of us, and he says, "What do you see?" He was pointing to the chalkboard, and he says, "What do you see?" And I said, "A chalkboard." He goes, "What else do you see?" Some chalk dust. "What else do you see?" Why was he asking such stupid questions? I didn't care. I had no idea. He goes, "Let me tell you what I see." And then he painted a picture that I'll never forget. He goes, "Did you see that this is a rectangle? Do you know what rectangles mean? Did you know that rectangles all have 4 right triangles? Right edges? Do you know that the right edges mean righteousness? Did you know that that points to grass?" I don't know how I got to that point. I'm still working on that. I really am. And he goes, "Do you know that when I go up, I'm going to be," oh, he's just a little kid, okay, "that I'm going to have a grass table?" I'm like, "No." He goes, "Do you know why I want a grass table? Because if I live in winter places and it's really cold outside, I still want to have a picnic. So I'm going to put grass on my table so I can always have a picnic." Okay, that totally blew my mind. It really did. I'm still flabbergasted with it. So I'm like, if he can see that in a chalkboard, is there other things I can see that I'm not seeing? Okay, always ask questions and always look for more. Always look for more, because there's more than what you see. Everywhere. There always will be. And you can go back to it a year later and see even more if you studied it all out. Always look for more. We hear that parables are like that. Parables, you can go back to them and you can hear them again and again and you can always get something out of it. But I dare to say that absolutely everything is like that. I can teach you a long time just about the legs of that table. I had a wonderful mentor in college. He said, "Welcome to English class. You're going to hate me in just about 3 minutes." I'm like, "Okay." "Great. Why am I going to hate you?" He said, "Because I'm going to get you to think harder than you ever thought before." And I said, "Okay, what do you mean by harder?" He goes, "I'm going to give you a subject, and this is the subject I had to write on. I want you to write me a 5-page paper on a podium. Just a little stand that you stand in front of, right? A podium. It's something you stand behind of when you give a speech. Is there anything else you need to know?" Right? Yeah, there is. I learned about wood. I learned about carving. I learned about the types of wood that are better than other types of wood. I learned about staining those types of things. I learned a ton on podiums. He goes, "Okay, if you're done with that, that's all great and good, but guess what? I'm going to give you something else. I want you to," and he picked out a brick out of his little, I don't know where it came from, but he gave me a brick. He goes, "I want you to write me a 10-page paper on bricks." I'm like, "We're going smaller. It's harder. I don't like this." And I wrote a 10-page paper on bricks. And I brought it back, and he said, impressive. Now I want you to do something for me again. He goes, where do bricks go? On building, blah, blah, blah. And I could tell him a lot about bricks, the history of bricks. I could tell everything. And then he said, well, do you know where I picked up this brick? I said, no, out of my backyard. And you know, when I picked it up, underneath was slime was under there, or ants. I want you to write me a 15-page paper on ants. We're getting even smaller. It's harder and harder. But man, did I learn to think. I learned to think. 15 pages on ants. Do you know I love ants? Why do I love ants? I know them. I intimately know them. Okay? I intimately know them. Just a side note, insects, the word insects means in sections. Did you know that? It comes from the word in sections, insect. So insects are made in 3 sections. Okay, cool point. All right, so that's what getting to think. I learned how to think from my professors, from my parents, from my mother. And then I learned to do it on my own so that I can now teach others how to do that. All right, I've got just a few minutes, but I've got some other ideas, and I'm just going to read them. You can write them down if you'd like. But I have 13 ways to teach others how to become curious. 13 ways. I love the number 13. It's very, very sacred to me because I've studied the number 13, okay? So that's why I have 13 of them. First one is to create a wonder board. Put a board up in your house or on your phone of all the questions you can come up with. Just writing down questions. Why did they choose green for go? Okay, creative question list for yourself and for the others that you're teaching. Or put it up on your wall so that everybody can see those questions, and maybe they can help you find the answers to them. This is number 1 still. Oh, you can write number 2 if you want, but you'll end up with 14. Okay, it's a wonder board. Create a wonder board or a wonder list. That's number 1. Number 2 is create an inquiry bag. This is great for little children. But I have my own inquiry bag, and I put it with me everywhere I go, except for to here. I don't think I brought it. Well, anyway, mine has a compass, a math compass. I love compasses now because I draw with compasses all the time, and I can't just not do without compass. So it's in my inquiry bag. But other things that you can put in there, magnifying glasses, a tape measure. Wouldn't it be fun to always have a tape measure somewhere? How about a flashlight? A paper and pencil, taking notes. I have in mine a straight edge.
A toothbrush.
A toothbrush! I love it! Why do you have a toothbrush?
I probably went to the dentist and then stuck a
Oh,
toothbrush.
okay.
Ann asked me for a pen. I tried to hand her a toothbrush. So.
I love it. Were you able to use that tool?
No.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. But it could be useful for something else.
Yes.
Yeah, you could paint with it. You know, toothbrushes are excellent paintbrushes.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Okay. This is just for learning things. Like if you're out in the park, you're like, oh, how long is that? I wonder how long that is. How long is an inch form? Did you know it's not an inch? Oh, I'm just curious. All right, label. Number 3. Label them. This is your people that you're mentoring, you're teaching, your roommates, you're helping, anybody. Label them. Is that a positive?
Usually.
Not usually. Okay, but I'm going to challenge you to label them positively. How many times do you hear, you're not very good? Oh my gosh, you're doing that again? Okay, how many times do we say, it's okay to be negative, where you think that's pretty natural? But what, can't we label them positive? Can't we say, oh, I love how you, fill in the blank. Or, oh, you are such a curious person. That's a great question. Label them curious. Label them, hey, you have a deep understanding of that subject. Oh, you must have received inspiration for that. Okay? Label them. Make them think that this is who they already are so that they can start thinking about, oh, if I'm a curious person, so-and-so said I was curious. And then this Tresta person said I was curious. Maybe I'm curious. And then they will start becoming curious. Cool, huh? All right, play games. Games. I teach this class on Wednesdays, and we had extra time, and I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with all this extra time? I have 15 little kids. What am I going to do with them? I'm like, oh, I know. I can play a game. So we sat down in a circle, and I started, once upon a time, your turn. And we played this game of telling a story, and we kept them entertained for 30 minutes just by telling this weird story about a guy from outer space. Okay? Okay? It's fun. Playing games. It gets them curious. It gets them thinking. It gets them involved. Be secretive. Was I secretive this morning when I started?
Scaling.
Still thinking about it, huh?
I Googled it.
Oh, you Googled it. Okay, do you know why he called the people scaling?
No right angles and no even sides.
So what would that mean about a person?
I don't know. I just know what a
Still,
scaling
yeah, right. You're right. You're absolutely right. Absolutely. Okay, keep your thinking, right? I'm making you curious because you're starting to think, right? Don't tell them the answers. Be secretive about it. If you're teaching a big, huge class, you come over here and say, okay, today we're going to talk about the Pythagorean theorem, and it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Don't tell anyone. Are they curious over here? Because you guys know, but you guys don't. Now they want to know what these guys know, but they don't know. They don't know, right? Okay, be secretive, but in a fun way. Don't keep secrets about them. All right, the other way. Take tangents. Take tangents. Yeah, how many people in the class? Oh, we can't go there. You can't say that.
Are you talking about trigonometry?
How many tangents did we take in this class?
A number of them.
A number of them, right? I took my own tangents. I took questions that would let off the subject. Is that okay? Absolutely. Because it teaches the person that has the question or about the story it's okay to be curious. When you stop them and say, that's not part of the subject, we'll talk about that another time, they're no longer curious. Oh, I have to stop my curiosity. Okay. That was number 6. Number 7, have them choose their own ideas. What do you want to learn about today? How do you evaluate your own ideas? Say you put them in a group of people and you say, all right, came up with 3 ideas as to why the whiteboard is white and not yellow. But that's just one I came up with. I don't care what the question is. But say they get together, and then this group gets together with theirs, and then I say, now pick the best idea and evaluate that and use that one as your speech and debate question, the paper that you're going to write on. What are you teaching them to do? Evaluate. I have 500 ideas, but I now know how to pick the best one out of those ideas and go with that. Okay, you're teaching evaluation that way. All right, number 8. Gotta hurry. Have them write an interesting idea. This is the beginning of curiosity. Writing it down, finding their ideas, and putting them on paper. Okay, number 9. Increase their responsibility. Now, how you do that in a classroom setting is you give them accountability. Or you can do that at home too. I have my children have a list of things that they have to do every day. They cannot do X, Y, Z until A, B, C is done. And I don't nag them all day long. I just go to the board and I say, oh, yep, they're done. Yes, they can go play. They're okay to play. They don't have to come, Mom, can I go play? I don't have to say yes or no because I know that they know they can't play until X, A, B, C is done. Okay? So I'm holding them accountable, but they're holding themselves accountable because I have that chart on the ball. Okay, number 10. Don't answer their questions. These are kind of out of the ordinary, right? Don't answer their questions. Why would I say that?
Research.
Have them research it. Go ahead. Okay.
So I'm teaching a class to 8 and 12-year-olds on this very thing. And one of the things is don't ask other people for information you can get yourself.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's
for
great.
For the same reason, because there's a great sense of accomplishment when you figure something out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It goes to their heart and it goes to
Yes, yes. If you tell them the answer, it goes like this, out the door.
Well, and they also are conditioned. They're conditioned to ask you. And they find ways to manipulate situations. Therefore, they can get it easier. And so it's conditioning.
Exactly. Exactly. So instead, what do you do?
You can work.
I look forward for you to tell me the answer later.
Oh, you're already on to me. I'm not going to give you the answer. But she will. Tell me your name.
Miriam.
Miriam's going to give us the answer.
Just ask them, well, what do you think?
Very good. Okay, you answer them with another question. My son hates it. Absolutely hates it. He's 20 years old. He comes to me with questions all the time. And I used to give him all the answers. That's why it's so hard right now, because he's not getting that I don't do that anymore. So he comes to me with a question. I said, oh, I bet you already know the answer. He goes, Mom, why am I coming to you with the question if I already know the answer? And I said, because I think you know the answer, or at least you know how to find the answer. And he goes, you said this last time, and I didn't do it. And I said, it's not a good enough question then. I'm mean. I'm really mean. But he's learning to think on his own. He's coming to me fewer and fewer times because now he's learning to do it on his own. He's finding his own problems, his own solutions. All right, are we on number 10? 11. Listen. Listen to them. Listen, 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 listen. I can't say this enough. Find out. I did not know my son liked Minecraft because he didn't play it. He did not play it, but I heard him say it a few times. Okay? That's how I knew. I'm going to listen to what they're liking, what they're saying. There's a lot of mentoring tools here that I can teach you to help you listen to them, but I'm not going to do it today. So number 12. If you don't know the answer, ask them. So you search for the answer together. If you don't know the answer, you let them know you don't know the answer. You don't pretend you know. Okay, be honest. Be honest. Search for the answers together. I loved doing this as a child when my older kids were younger. We would find out these stories together. We'd find out where they went together. It was like a puzzle piece to me. Just putting up a new puzzle, a new picture, and a new puzzle in the timeline. All right, number 13. Share your own questions with them. Share your own questions that you have that you don't know the answers to with them. And who knows, maybe they know the answer. Okay, who knows, maybe they'll come up with an answer. Okay, let's go to scaling real quick. Do you know the answer now, Heidi?
No. Google was unreliable for that.
Oh, Google was letting us down.
I didn't know what to search for.
Yeah. I even looked it up in the 1828 dictionary, which is a very reliable dictionary, and I loved it because you can find these old-fashioned words, and it didn't even have the answer either. Okay? It's too old for the 1828 dictionary to get this. They used to use math terms, and we still do. We use the math terms in our language quite a bit. Have you ever heard things pointless? Okay? Those are math terms. Okay? Hairline. Do you know that that's a math term? Timberline is a math term. Okay? We have tons of math terms we use in our language, but scaling has left our language. It is no longer there, and it wasn't even in the 1800s. We didn't even use it. So scaling, back in the Greeks when they used it. Well, let me tell you what a triangle is, first of all. This is a scaling triangle. It has no equal sides, no equal angles. Nothing equal. Nothing equal. Are you getting it?
Yes.
It has nothing equal. Nothing the same.
Initially, you said no equal sides, no
Equal angles. Okay. There's nothing. They're each an individual side. Okay, they all have something that's different. It's all different. So what the Greeks were trying to do, they were trying to become an isosceles people, which meant that two sides were the same. They were striving to be an isosceles. No, they were isosceles. They worked to be isosceles every day, but they were striving to become equilateral triangles. Now do you get it?
Yep.
Who can explain it in
They were
words?
divided and they were all working against each other instead of having the same purpose and moving towards the same goal.
Okay. As a community, that's right. They didn't work together. They all had their own separate paths. They were all individuals. But as a individual, it's the same way. Do you know anybody that acts one way at church, a different way at work, and a different way at play? We all know people like that. We might know it ourselves, right? Sometimes I act like this people in front of this group of crowd, I act this way, and in this crowd, I act this way. Okay? So it's important. It was important to the Greeks at that time to be equal and to become equal in all areas, to be the same person everywhere you went. And that's what a scaling triangle is. And that's what scaling meant, is to be equal in all areas, to be yourself no matter where you are, so that you could be honest in everything. All right, I am done. Thank you very much for your time. If you want to know, I have written a book about symbology. If you are interested in getting that, you can find it at keystoneed.com/notbacktoschooloffer with dashes in between. Okay. If you're interested in learning more about the circle, the square, the triangle. I didn't tell you one more thing. Sorry, Ann. That's the shape for the number 2. It's called a vesico Pisces. To be continued. Yep, that's for you to look up. KeystoneEd.com /not back to school offer with a dash in between each word. And through midnight tonight, it's free. After midnight tonight, it will be $10.
Does everyone need a quick break? Yes, no? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Ann. So like I said earlier, I've known Ann for 2 years. Ann is the creator of the Ideal Life Vision program. How many of you have done like a vision board or some sort of goal setting technique before? Okay, so a few of you have done a goal setting techniques. This is goal setting on steroids. That's the only way that I heard it described that way, and that's how I've described it ever since. What Ann helps you to create is clarity and focus. That is the big picture of what she's going to teach us. And I promise you, her story is so powerful that your mind is going to start spinning with the ideas of what you can create in your own life. So Ann is the mother of 5. She is married. She's been married to Scott for 100 years. And she actually homeschooled 3 of her kids, right? Her 3 daughters. And she does some really fun things a few times a year. She gets on a plane and she goes to Africa. And she hangs out with the Masai Mara. And I think she's going to talk about that a little bit. So she created the Ideal Life Vision program. She goes all over teaching about this. And I am lucky to be one of her Ideal Life Vision coaches. I got certified because this is such an incredible program. So without further ado, Miss Ann Webb.
All right. Thank you. I need to get a little chair to put my stuff on, too. Should I do that? Okay.
And I'll erase my board for you, too.
All right.
Can I just say something about you really quick?
Sure.
This is Ann Webb. She has been my hero since, I don't even know how long. I think since 2008, I think, is when I heard about her. And I had always wanted to meet her, and I met her at a conference one time. We were playing a circle, and someone said that to Ann Webb, and I said, is it the Ann Webb? And they're like, stop, whatever. And I'm like, no, is it really? Is it the Ann Webb? And then they said, go meet in partners. And I'm like, Ann Webb's my partner. And I became one, and I think she's so beautiful. I think she's absolutely beautiful. And you have been my heroes for so long. So when I heard that today that I was going to be speaking with you, I cried. I did. I cried. I'm like, I'm going to share this stage with Ann Webb. Oh my gosh, I'm sharing the stage with Ann Webb. So I want you to know you've been my hero for some time, and I'm very honored to be here with you.
Okay, thank you. That was really nice. Okay, knowledge is power. Oh, do I have to? This is the camera right there?
I'm going to force you to stay in
Right
this
here. Okay.
fictitious
You know what?
fence
That's
right
going to
here.
be interesting. I'll have a face like this.
Good luck with that. See, I'd be over here, and I'm over here. I'm like a pinball. I'll just.
Okay. All right. Got it. Okay. Knowledge is power. Ever heard that? Do you believe it? Okay. I'm seeing this. Okay. So here's the deal. I don't believe it. Okay, I'm going to tweak it just a little bit, and I'll tell you what I believe. Applied knowledge is power. Because here's the deal.
Without knowledge, you can apply it.
Yeah. Good ideas are a dime a dozen. I mean, you can go into any, Barnes & Noble bookstore, and there you are surrounded by incredible knowledge. But here's the deal. I read the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, quite a few years ago. In fact, my dad forced me to read it in high school. Unfortunately, I did not apply that. If I would have, I guarantee I would have been a multi-millionaire today. Okay? I read the book, The Automatic Millionaire, a few years back. Again, I didn't apply it. Okay, so here's the deal. Knowledge is great, but unless it's applied, I don't know. I know we're in kind of an education thing. I'm going to give you my personal opinion. If you don't apply it, it's useless. So what I'm going to be talking about here tonight is I'm going to be talking about ideal life vision, obviously. Okay? Ideal life vision is a couple of things. I have described it as a revolutionary goal-setting technique. Okay? I've also described it as a way to rewire your brain. Okay? A way literally to change the neural pathways in your mind. And third, it's also an implementation system. Okay, that's the part that I think is so important. So I'm going to tell you my story first, just so you kind of have an idea about what the heck is this ideal life vision. But I will tell you this, it absolutely changed my life. You're going to hear about that right now, and even better, has the ability to change your life as well. So that's the good news. So my story starts about 25, 26 years ago. At that time, my husband and I were just getting out of graduate school. And now I have to back up and just kind of say that when I married my husband, he basically said this to me, Ann, if you will just put me through 6 years of college, I promise that when we get out, we will be rich and you will never have to work another day in your life. So I guess my first mistake was that I believed him, okay? But that was not the case, because what happened is he decided to go after we went 4 years up at Utah State, and then he decided to go to an Ivy League school. And the only reason I tell you that is because all that means really is that when you get out of one of those, it just means that you have, let me count them, tens and tens and tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in student loans that you now have to pay back. And he took an entry-level position, which I've come to learn is code for we're going to pay you peanuts, in the most expensive city in the country at that time, Washington, D.C. So these three factors honestly meant that what happened to this rich bliss lifestyle you promised me, okay, that I was going to be able to stay home and we were going to be rich. No way was that happening. So just to kind of put it in perspective, he made $24,000 a year, which is $2,000 a month. $800 went to student loans. $800 went to rent, leaving us $400 for now a family of 4. We had 2 little girls by then, for everything else we could possibly need. Now, my goal was that after I put him through school, I was going to be able to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom. That was my goal, and I was expecting that. But unfortunately, what was going on in our life, there was no way that that could happen. But I was determined because I left my kids in daycare for quite a few years at this point. So I said, I'm not doing this. I am going to stay home, and I'm going to start a business. That's what I'm going to do. And so I started one. And it didn't go so well. So I started another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And I started 5 businesses in a matter of like a year or two, a couple of years. And I either went in the hole. One business I actually made $100 at, and my very best one I made $200 at. Okay, total. Okay, not per month, total. So things were going downhill really fast. But you know what? We've been married for, at this point, 7 years. Couldn't go out to dinner, couldn't go to a movie unless our parents paid for it. Okay, that's really embarrassing at 7 years of marriage. And so, but after a while, you have to get a life. Okay, what are you going to do on the weekends? Well, for date night for us, because we couldn't afford to go out to dinner, we couldn't afford a movie, not even the dollar movie, we decided to play games with our friends every weekend. So we'd have them all come over, and I would make some brownies, get a pitcher of ice water, put it out on the table. They would come over, and that would be the date night every weekend. Well, this one particular week, we invited a bunch of them. Okay, there were maybe 6 couples, and they came over, and they were really, really our best friends. And for whatever reason, that night, they decided they didn't want ice water with their brownies. They were warm. They wanted cold milk. So they go in my kitchen, open my fridge, grab a brand new gallon of milk, open it, pass it around, pour a cup, pass it around. Ultimately, they threw the empty container into the garbage. And I kind of watched this, and when they left, I couldn't hold it back anymore, and I just burst into tears. Because I knew we didn't have $1.25 to buy another gallon of milk for at least a week. You know, now it's one thing when you and hubby have to put water on your cereal for a week. I mean, no biggie. But it's a whole different thing when you have to put water in your baby's bottles and they cry because they're hungry. So that was our situation, okay? And about this same time, my dad, he lived here in Salt Lake. This is where I grew up. He called and he said, look, I know you guys don't have any money, but so I'm going to send you some because I want you to come home for Christmas because I have 2 things that I cannot wait to tell you about. And he was so excited. I'm like, what is it? Just spill it. Tell me right now. He's like, oh, no, I kind of have to show you. Just come home and I'll tell you these 2 ideas. I was intrigued. My dad had never never acted that excited about anything. So I remember going home, dropping the suitcases. Okay, Dad, spill it. What are these 2 ideas? And he walks out of the room. I'm going to walk off the camera for 1 second. And he comes back with something that looked kind of like this. And I'm like, what is that? This is your mom's wassail recipe. Okay, now, I don't know how many of you know what wassail is, but if I could sing, I'd sing Here We Go Wassailing. Okay, it's a Christmas cider, but I don't want to torture any of you. But we had it every Christmas, and my mom had this recipe that was made with like country time lemonade and tang and some spices, and you just dumped it into water, and we would drink that. And my dad said, well, this girl that grew up near me when I was young, she took your mom's recipe, she packaged it like this, she sold it at some craft shows, and last month she made $30,000. Okay, now that got my attention because that's more than we made in a whole year. And he said, and she didn't even ask if she could borrow or use the recipe. And so she's in California. I think you should do this. You're on the East Coast. You should do this. So we started chatting, and I got pretty excited about my 6th business because this one had a track record. Somebody actually made money at it. And so we started chatting about it, and I was pretty excited. Somewhere in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, oh, Dad, what was that other idea? Because you told me there were 2. And now this is when he got excited. He's like, oh, my gosh, I hired a coach. Okay, and I have to remember, this is the 80s, and I can promise you I'd never heard the term life coach or business coach. So when he said he hired a coach, I'm picturing my dad in a basketball uniform, okay? And I'm like, seriously, Dad, you are way too old to play sports. He's like, not that kind of coach, kind of like a consultant. And he went on to tell me how he had hired the student of Napoleon Hill who wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. And he paused and he waited for me to be super impressed. But I had never heard of Napoleon Hill nor Think and Grow Rich. And so anyway, he said, okay. And then he goes, I hired this guy and he taught me this goal setting technique. And Ann, in the last year, I quadrupled my income. Okay, now growing up, I knew that my dad always made $50,000. That was his like little thermostat. I said, 200,000? It's like, yeah. Okay, so again, this is the 80s, and I'm like, whoa. And he said, and I paid off my house, and I bought a Cadillac cash. So now I'm pretty impressed, and now I'm actually listening. And he said, and then he bottom lined it. And he goes, look, I'm thinking between this business idea that I just gave you and this goal-setting technique that I'm going to tell you about that I've learned, maybe you can get something going for yourself financially. I mean, obviously, my dad's not going to let his daughter and his 2 granddaughters starve to death, so he had bailed us out on a few occasions, okay? But obviously, he wanted us to be independent. So anyway, he handed me this little booklet, and he goes, let's not even talk about it now. Let's just enjoy the holidays, but don't do your typical goal setting in January. Now, my dad was a goal setter. He managed an insurance company, and he had to light the fire under all of his agents. So I, literally as a 5-year-old, was setting goals. And the technique that I used was, let's get out a yellow legal pad and write down our weak and generic goals and just bullet point them and stick it in a drawer, and we'll never look at them again until the next year when we do the same thing again, okay? So that was kind of, and he goes, don't do that again, read this book. So he handed me this little self-published, literally 10, 15 pages long. So obviously right after Christmas, New Year's resolutions, I go home, I'm about ready to get my yellow legal pad, I'm like, where's that book? And I found it, and I read it, and it said, write your goals first person, present tense, as if they had already happened. Okay, now that, in 2014, that's kind of mainstream. That does not sound that weird. But let me just tell you, in 1989, that was psychotic. Okay, like, why would you do that? Write your goals as if they had happened when they haven't. And I remember thinking, no, really? And so anyway, I read through this little booklet, and I sat down at my typewriter, because heaven knows we couldn't afford a computer. They were new and they were expensive. And I typed something that went like this: I have a wassail business. By December 31st, 1989, I make $20,000 selling 6,000 bags of wassail at 6 craft shows. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 1 to 3 in the afternoon, I make the necessary phone calls and accomplish the tasks that I need to. And it feels incredible to be on top of things financially. Okay, so typed-wise, it was about this long. And then it said, okay, now do it in all areas of your life. So I did another paragraph on spiritual and relationships and health and fitness and personal development. When I was done, I had about a page and a half. And I remember thinking, that might be the weirdest thing I've ever done, okay? Writing as if I was this person that I'm not. But I remember thinking, oh, well, I'm done. Okay, so that was it. And the next day, my dad called me, and he said, did you record it? I'm like, what are you talking about? And he said, didn't you see part 2? Go get your book. Hurry, I'll wait for you. Go get it. And I remember getting the book, and sure enough, there it said part 2, flip the page over, and it simply said this: now record it in your own voice on a cassette tape recorder with Baroque music playing in the background. So you can imagine, if I thought part 1 was weird, what I thought about part 2. I remember literally taking that and just like frisbeeing it right into the trash can, saying, heck no, I am not doing this. And I don't know if it was the bill collectors calling, my kids crying because they were hungry, but after a couple of days, I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. So I go to the library, and I tell the librarian, okay, I need a big tape recorder, and I need some Baroque music. And that librarian looked at me and she giggled. And then she giggled some more, and then she just like busted out laughing. Like, what? And she goes, honey, that's Baroque music, not broke music. And I had no idea what Baroque music was until she started handing me Mozart, Handel, Beethoven. Yeah, I knew who they were. She goes, honey, this is Baroque music. So I took it home, all this stuff. I went into my house and I grabbed my kids' Fisher-Price tape recorder. Okay, and I went into my room to record my first ever live vision. So I can do a little demo on what this looked like back 25 years ago. So I had my paper that I typed, 1.5 pages, and over here was the music playing on a cassette. I pushed the button and I ran back and I started reading my life vision into my tape recorder, and I'm feeling really stupid. And I'm about 3 minutes into it, and all of a sudden my 2 little girls come running in the room screaming, Mom, she's hitting me, get her off me, she's pulling my hair. And all this racket that they're making is now on my recording. And I know that I'm not going to like that. So I put them downstairs. I lock the door. They're in front of Sesame Street now, and I start over. And I have to rewind, and get those tapes queued up again, and I start again. Almost done, like down to the last few seconds, and the phone rings. And now the phone ringing is in my recording because I forgot to take it off the hook. So let's just say anything that could go wrong did go wrong. Next, it's my little 2 girls pounding on the locked door, let us in, let us in. And I remember thinking, oh no, it's not going to be in my recording, but sure enough, you could hear the chanting when I started listening, when I went back and rewound it. So 3 hours later, I finally have my 10-minute tape done. Probably should have taken 12 to 15 minutes, but it was a bad day. So I know what to do next. I just need to listen to my tape. And it's awesome for about 2 days. Somewhere around the 3rd day, I heard myself say, I make $20,000. And I thought to myself, yeah, right, Ann, you've never even made $200 at a business, and now you think you're going to make $20,000. Get real. So anybody in here ever heard those voices that said, you can't do this?
Self-doubt.
Yep. Unfortunately, I listened to it. So when I said, yeah, I got to get real. Get real. What's realistic? So there's no chance in heck I'm going to make $20,000. And the number that popped into my head was $5,000. Now, not because I thought I could make $5,000. Let's just put it this way. If I didn't make $5,000, I was going to go to jail for not paying my bills. So that was the new realistic number. Okay, but here's the deal. The thought of having to go back to re-record to change one word, no way. I'm like way too lazy to do that. I mean, it took me 3 hours. So I'm like, I am not changing this. So my lazy self said, look, you know when you're going to say 20,000 on the tape, just vocally say 5,000 over the top. Okay, that was a brilliant idea, wasn't it? So if you would have seen me back in the 80s, I'm going off camera here for a minute, you would have seen me walking down the road with my Walkman. Okay, we didn't have iPods back then. We had Walkmans, and that we just put our little tapes in here. And I would have been walking down the road, maybe pushing my stroller, and I would have been listening to my life vision. And okay, here it comes, 5,000. Okay, and I would have just blurted out 5,000 while I was listening to this. Totally got some weird stares from people like, she got Tourette's or something. I mean, like, really, they thought it was so weird. And my husband even said, I don't get it. Every time you're listening to Phil Collins, you just like say 5,000. And of course, he thought I was listening. That was our favorite singer back in the day. And I'm like, I just let him think that. So anyway, I kept listening to it. And about 10 days later, I remember driving to the grocery store. Okay, putting my kids in their car seat, heading to the grocery store, getting to the grocery store, and then hearing the tape rewind. Most of you in this room are not old enough to know what a tape rewinding sounds like, but it's a very distinct sound, and I remember thinking, did I listen to my life vision? well, I must have because it's rewinding. And then I panicked because I thought, I don't remember listening to it. But I must have. And it was one of those experiences where you daydream. It's like reading a book and then 5 pages later you realize you've been checked out. I must have been thinking about my grocery list. I did not remember listening. And I panicked because I thought, how do I accomplish my goals if I can't even stay focused for 10 minutes? That's how long my tape was. So I went home and I found that booklet, and on the back was the guy's name and phone number. And so I called him, and I was like, look, you don't know me from Adam. My dad's one of your clients, and I did your silly, he called it the creed back then. I did your silly creed, and I just have a question. How do I accomplish my goals? I'm checked out. I'm daydreaming. I'm not focused. What am I going to do? And he said, one question. Did you record it to the Baroque music? And I said, yeah, I did. And why did I do that? Okay. I mean, I've been listening to it for 10 days. I followed directions. Never once until that moment did I ask myself, I wonder why I'm recording this to Baroque music. So I asked him, and he said, oh, because it's in so many hertz and it puts you in alpha and all this big long scientific thing that went straight over my head. I had no idea what a hertz or an alpha was. And I'm like, when he got done, I'm like, can you like say that one more time in English? And he's like, can't. Oh, a client just walked in, can't talk to you anymore, just keep listening, it's gonna work, bye. And he hung up on me. So needless to say, I kept listening, okay, to my cassette tape on my little Walkman, every day, and sometimes, you know, I was totally focused. Okay, here it comes. 5,000, okay? And other times, daydreaming, didn't say anything. So I hope you guessed the end of my story. I made $19,500-ish, few $100 short of my original goal. I mean, my new goal was 5,000, but my original goal was 20. And I was telling my husband, honestly, my husband and I were like jumping up and down with joy because I had almost doubled our income. And he said, you should put a 0 on the back of that for next year. Now remember, I put my husband through college, so I didn't get to go to college. So I'm trying to do the math. Okay, 20,000 with a 0 on the back. What is that number? 200,000, and I just like was shocked. And he goes, I'm just kidding. Okay, but the more I thought about it, I thought, if I can sell one product, what if I could sell 3? Maybe I can come up with something else. If I can retail, maybe I can retail and wholesale, because I'd met some people that year that were like, you should wholesale this. I didn't even know what that meant, though. And then finally, I thought, if I can do 6 craft shows, which I had done that year, maybe he, meaning my husband, can go do 6 more. So I was way too scared to do 200,000. Okay, that was like more than the President of the United States made. I learned that. So I was way too scared for that. But I'm like, just for fun, just for an experiment, I'm going to go for 100,000. So I rewrote. I mean, if I'm going to, now I have to rewrite my life vision and re-record it because I'm changing it this time. And if I'm going to up-level it, I'm going to up-level it in all areas. So I sat down again at the typewriter and rewrote and up-leveled everything. And that one page now became about 7 pages. That year, we made about $93,000. And my husband quit his job and started working for me. I'm no dummy. I made him president of my company. And our life began to change. And in about 18 months after that, we actually hit 7 figures or $1 million in our business. So to say that this changed my life is a little bit of an understatement. So let me just kind of say, let's nutshell, what is a life vision? Okay, I mean, you heard the story, but, you know, how would we describe this? Now, I've had some of my clients say, oh, it's kind of like a minutely detailed personal mission statement. Okay, I'm sure they snagged that language from Stephen R. Covey. Maybe they're friends with him, but it's not. Other people say, no. It's like a declaration of intent. Here's the deal. I don't really care what you call it, okay? All I want you to know is it's about 2 things. They're the things that Heidi mentioned. It's about clarity and it's about focus. So when I say clarity, I'm talking minute clarity. Okay, to the tune of my current life vision is about 13 pages, single space typed. Okay, that's a whole lot of clarity. Okay, it's not just the what, but it's the where, the when, the by when, the how, the emotion, the motivation, all of that. Okay, and it's not anything like an affirmation. An affirmation is a single sentence. This is more like paragraphs and pages. So that's the clarity part. The focus part, again, you heard it in the story. It's, I'm recording it in your own voice with a certain kind of music and listening to it every day. So let me go over that in just a little bit more detail. Why would we record it? Okay, well, a couple of reasons. Because that's how it imprints onto your subconscious. Okay, that's how it changes the neural pathways in your brain. Okay, so that's I mean, I don't really have I could probably spend 15 or 20 minutes just talking about that, but I'm going to do, this is kind of a short flyover. So, but that's the scientific reason of why we record it. There's a much more practical reason, and that is simply at 13 pages, do you think I would read my life vision every day? Do you think I would? No, there's not a chance. One time my tape broke, and I thought, oh, I'll just read it. It didn't even last one day, and I stopped reading it. Just like, oh my gosh, this takes forever, and I just didn't do it. So it's a really, really hard habit to develop if you read it. But if you can listen to it while you're driving in your car, while you're exercising, while you're cleaning your house, while you're doing mindless tasks, it's much easier, very easy habit to develop. Okay, so that's why we record it in your own voice. Okay, I don't know how many of you know this or would even believe this, but your voice is your most believable voice. Okay, it's the one you've heard your entire life. It's the one that you really do believe. Now, some people will say, no, wait a sec, I thought that was my mother, okay? But no, it's your own voice is your most believable voice. If you took your life vision, saying your specific, very crystal clear goals, and put it up to a generic affirmation CD in someone else's voice, I promise you this is 100 times more powerful because you believe your own voice. Okay, so that's why we record it in our own voice. I have people jokingly say to me, can you please record my life vision in your voice? Because I'm sure it would work. And I'm like, it wouldn't. So anyway, that's your own voice. And then, again, there's the music aspect. Okay, and in my story, it was Baroque music. Okay, and why Baroque music? If you've ever heard of the Mozart effect, okay, this is moms playing Mozart for their babies so they can get smarter or learn faster so they can retain information for testing or something like that. It's the same idea, the same principle. So I'm not really going to go into all of the reasons. That right there is another 30-minute topic. But just, again, it's the Baroque music and other music that might be more New Age that has the same properties as Baroque. It's what puts you in alpha. It's what drives it right into the subconscious. So again, by checking out and daydreaming, it doesn't matter because my voice and the words are being carried into my subconscious. So that's why the music. And then finally, the daily focus. Listening to it once a day. Sure beats the heck out of writing your goals on a yellow legal pad, sticking it in a drawer, and never looking at it again. Okay. So anyway, that's what a life vision is. So the good news is that it doesn't just work for me. Okay, it's worked for, I've trained over 10,000 people in the last few years using life vision, and I can tell you it works for the majority of the people who consistently use it. Okay, it actually works for some people who don't consistently use it, but I don't really know how they got that to happen. There is power in just writing sometimes, and sometimes people don't record, but you know that there's power in writing, so even just writing it can help that. Okay, so this works in all areas. Now, I have had people say to me, well, I bet that making $1